Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time for being here. I'm sorry I'm reading off of my very small screen because my computer is taking a few minutes to boot up. So you see that we have Csur, la télé with us this evening. They will only be recording. This meeting is here in person and live and will be possible to review afterwards. So tonight is not the beginning of the Sandy Beach file, and it is not the end either. It is one more step in a process that Council has been building carefully in the open since last summer. First the acquisition, then the financing, and now the question of whether accepting the CMM's Tram Verte et Bleue subsidy is in the best interest of Hudson. I want to start by recognizing something clearly. When a municipality considers external funding, it is normal for residents to ask hard questions. People worry about autonomy, they worry about access and overcrowding, they worry about parking, about costs, about what will change, and about whether the town will still be able to make decisions based on Hudson's realities. Those questions are legitimate, and they are exactly why we are here. What I want to be equally clear about is this. Sandy Beach was acquired to protect it permanently and to ensure that Hudson keeps a say in how this sensitive natural area is managed. That purpose does not change tonight. The subsidy does not change the fact that the town remains the owner of the site and the town remains responsible for protecting it. At the same time, we should not pretend there are no trade-offs. A subsidy of $2 million matters. It reduces the financial burden on taxpayers. But it also comes with conditions. And those conditions must be understood plainly, without exaggeration, and without minimizing them either. This evening, our goal is therefore very simple: to present the facts as they stand, to share the results of the public survey, and to put on the table the material from which Council will make its final decision at the next regular Council meeting on Tuesday, February 24th of 2026. And although the Conservation and Management Plan has not formally begun, I want to underline this. The survey results and the comments we received are already filled with valuable information. They highlight the real concerns, the real expectations, and the practical issues we will have to address, and they will directly guide the elaboration of that plan. We have also learned a great deal from the survey, not only from the yes and no result, but from the comments themselves. What came through clearly is that many residents share the same priorities, even when they disagree on the subsidy: protecting the ecological integrity of the site, managing visitor capacity, avoiding traffic and parking pressure, and ensuring that Hudson retains clear decision-making authority. Tonight is an opportunity to present those learnings transparently and to ensure they directly shape the next step, the Conservation and Management Plan. Finally, I want to underline something important about continuity and governance. Since August, Council has communicated clearly that we would be evaluating this subsidy openly once the acquisition and financing steps were completed. Since then, we have gone through an election period and welcomed 2 new councillors, and yet the town's orientations has remained consistent: protect Sandy Beach, manage it responsibly, and keep residents informed at each major step. That is what we are doing tonight. So thank you again for being here. We will walk through the file in 3 parts: where the acquisition stands, what the subsidy actually requires, and what the next steps are, including the elaboration of the Conservation Management Plan that will define the access model in a way that protects this land for generations. So this evening with me, I have Sophia Fuga to my left, or Fuga, sorry, to my left. We're laughing because at the committee meeting on Tuesday, this was how I was supposed to pronounce
That's
it.
right.
And, so thank you. She is our Environment Chief of Division, and we have Vanessa Roach, our Director General, as well with us. So there will be a question period towards the end of the evening. I will take on any political questions. Sophia will take on the technical questions. If we don't have the answers to your questions, we will take them down, take a note, and get back to you. Probably at the next council meeting, I will start the meeting with a list of answers if we were not able to do so this evening. So with this, you have then on our screen behind us This is the presentation for the acquisition of the Sandy Beach site and an update and date of this month, including, of course, the $10 million subsidy from the CMM and the next steps. Next slide. 2 million, what did I say? 2 million. There is no magic, it has not increased. I wish it had. And thank you for catching that. Sophia, your slide.
Good evening. So I will outline, as Mayor Hutchison said, the presentation will take place in 3 major parts. So we will start with an update. Mayor Hutchison will describe the acquisition. I'll speak to you about the natural area of the Sandy Beach site, and then Mayor Hutchison will review the loan bylaw and the registry, as well as the financing scenarios. Then I will speak to you about the many stakeholders that will contribute their expertise and knowledge of the environment, as well as participate in consultations. In the second part of the presentation, I will talk to you about the CMM Tram Verte et Bleu program. I'll define the program, outline the conditions of the CMM agreement. Then I'll share the results of the CMM grant public survey, as well as the comments that we received. So we'll take a look at a few of those. All very interesting. In the third part of the presentation, I'll talk about the next steps. So they'll include the drafting of the conservation plan. I'll talk about the deliverables and the timeline of the conservation plan. We'll see what is planned for the reopening of the site and what to stay tuned for in the next little while, so the next months. And then at the end, we'll have some time for questions. So the first part of the presentation is on the update. I wanted to tell you a little bit about this map here that's up on the screen. It was taken from Hudson's Natural Areas Conservation Plan. It's the map of conservation priorities. And so these conservation priorities were determined through scientific data and also the residents' conservation priorities. And the brightest yellow areas are the highest priority. And as you can see, Sandy Beach is nice, bright yellow. So it is a very high conservation priority. It might have looked different on the screen.
Did it? Was it a different color?
It's yellow in my screen.
All right, and I should have also mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that this presentation will be solely in English. However, if there are any parts that someone would like us to repeat in French, I can do sort of a rapid translation. Of course, everything would take a lot longer if we were to do it in both languages. This is a standard practice that we've been adopting pretty much throughout. It seems to work, and I will be providing the opening words that I have done in English. I will also be providing the French translation so that these can be put up as well on the town's website. But don't hesitate at any point if you want to raise your hand and say, could you repeat that in French? We're both able to, all 3 of us are able to. And as well, the question period, please feel comfortable to come to the microphone and speak in the language of your choice, and we will answer you in the language of your choice. So this should start to look pretty familiar. It is the map showing the 7 lots that were acquired. The 7 lots total 143,000 square meters, so that represents 14 hectares or 35 acres. The price before taxes was $8.75 million. The evaluation was for $11.8 million. We already own Jack Layton Park and the parking lot by Jack Layton Park, and also the Delta Vivry. So the Delta Vivry portion is between those 2 red lots that you see, so between lots 6359848 and 3080948. That is where the Vivry runs through. So if we do the total of both, so at least Jack Layton Park and the Delta Vivry total 85,000 square meters and 8.7 hectares or 21 acres. So when you put all of these together, it starts to generate a decent area for conservation.
Absolutely. So the site now comprises 56 acres, so 22.7 hectares, with all of the previously owned by the town, all the land previously owned by the town, and the land that we added with this purchase. The land is composed of wetlands, including marshland, swampland, peatland, as well as deciduous forest. It includes, of course, the delta, the Vivry Delta, and scientists listed 29 species with special status on the property. So those rare, vulnerable species, species at risk, plants and animals together. The site is important habitat for amphibians, reptiles, birds. Sandy Beach is also part of the Vivry Ecological Corridor, which is one of the 3 essential corridors, ecological corridors in Hudson, according to the town's conservation plan. As I mentioned earlier, the site also boasts the highest conservation priority in Hudson's Natural Area Conservation Plan.
So as you may remember, on August 18th of 2025, the Hudson Town Council approved the agreement for the purchase of Sandy Beach and surrounding natural areas and trails for a price of $8.75 million before taxes and financing costs. The loan bylaw was adopted on September 16th of 2025. A register was held on September 24th. There would have been 491 signatures required to trigger a referendum, and 247 signatures were obtained. Thereby, there was no referendum held. The loan bylaw was approved by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs on December 17th of 2025, and we should be signing the purchase, the transaction
26th.
on the 26th of February. It was supposed to have been February 11th, but the date has been delayed, and which actually turns out well, because I'm available on February 26th. So we're getting there. It's really exciting period for us. And also just to remind you that in August, when we did the public presentation, there were 2 financing scenarios. The first one, well, both are using the $2 million surplus that was affected for this purpose, reducing the loan bylaw to $7.65 million. And this evening, we're considering the $2 million acquisition subsidy from the CMM to further reduce. As a reminder, although we have the authorization from the ministry to go for a long-term loan bylaw, so 40 years at 7.65, plus taxes, plus financing fees, or that's, sorry, including the taxes and financing fees, we are doing a bridge loan, so short-term financing this year, while we are amassing the little bits and pieces of subsidies and others, so that when we actually go to the long-term loan, we have the exact amount that we will be financing and not financing more than what we need. So all this to say that is why we're looking at reducing that long-term loan over 40 years to $5.65 million. And there's the difference that you've seen some people mention on social media, that $37 difference is the difference between what it is now without the subsidy at $121 per tax invoice per property, and it could be reduced down to around $84 per invoice, so taxable property. With regards to les parties prenantes, so partners, I will have Sophia continue the presentation.
So just to be clear, the town remains the responsible authority for the site. Nonetheless, many stakeholders will contribute their expertise and knowledge of the environment, as well as participate in consultations. Residents and local groups such as le Nichoir, experts at Creek 53, and the Kanesatake Environment Office will be asked to contribute their expertise. We have also been in contact with provincial and federal government authorities to see if they can help out. Nature Action will be mandated to draft a conservation plan specifically for the site. The Environment Committee will fulfill their review and recommend role. There are also conservation organizations involved. We contacted the Nature Conservancy of Canada, Fondation de la Faune du Québec, the Canada Nature Fund, Age of Union, to see if and what kind of additional funding the town could receive. And so now we're in the second part of the presentation. I can talk to you about the CMM Tram Verte Bleu program. So the PMAD is le Plan Métropolitain d'Aménagement et de Développement, which is the CMM's land planning document. It defines guidelines to achieve the CMM's objectives in terms of development, transportation, and environment. The Tram Verte Bleu project, it was created to meet the objective of conservation of 17% of the territory. So that's the major program to help the CMM achieve that conservation goal. The Tram Verte Bleu project makes it possible to protect, enhance, and connect natural environments of interest. It also prioritizes giving access to nature. So to date, the Tram Verte Bleu has funded 188 projects for 48 municipalities in the CMM for a total investment of $300 million. And right now, we are in the second phase of the Tram Verte Bleu project. I'll talk a little bit about the conditions of the CMM grant now. The CMM grant has obligations. So the town must ensure that the conservation is in perpetuity. The land must be conserved in perpetuity. Also allow access to all CMM residents. So all CMM residents have to have the same access. It also one of the obligations is to register the land to the Répertoire métropolitain des initiatives de conservation. And that registry is basically a list for the CMM to track all of the municipally led conservation efforts, that the lands that are not in the Ministry of the Environment's register, Registre des Aires Protégées. So if your land is not yet in this registry, it can be in the CMM's registry. It takes years to get into le Registre des Aires Protégées, and just a resolution to get into the Répertoire métropolitain des initiatives de conservation, and it allows them to keep track and make sure they're on target to reach that 17% conservation. So in summary, with this agreement, I would also like to tell you what the agreement does not impose. It does not impose co-management or political or operational control. It doesn't impose uses either. It doesn't impose uses in terms of what part can be used for what. So with this agreement, the town remains owner and in full control of the site. It's not a transfer of ownership. As long as the obligations are met, Hudson will remain in full control of the site and can decide which sectors are dedicated to conservation, preservation, and recreation. So I'll talk more about how we're going to designate these sectors in a little bit. Hudson, the town of Hudson will decide how the site is managed, basically, and cared for, and decide where visitors will park and how many visitors are too many.
And I may add here that if we were to break any of these conditions, it's not that the CMM comes in and starts managing the site for us. It just means that we would have to return the $2 million subsidy. It's that break. And it's not a, how major is non-compliance. It's a question of if we were to choose at any point that in the end this isn't working and that we would want to do it differently, or that we wouldn't want to preserve it, or that we would want to only regulate to people of our choice, then we would just basically say to them, we can't meet those conditions. Here's your money back. We want full return. So remember that we don't lose. It's our property. It belongs to us. We do what we want with it. But the requirements at this point are that if we're going to receive money from the CMM, we have to agree to preserve this property in perpetuity, and also to give equal access. So if we restrict access, we have to restrict access in the same way to everyone on the CMM. And if we open access, it should be to all on the same terms. So please continue.
All right, now I'll talk to you a little bit about the Sandy Beach CMM grant survey. It was open for 10 days, from February 6th to the 15th. 560 people responded to the survey. That's significant. The English version received 410 respondents, and the French version received 150. It's very impressive.
Did you want to speak a little bit to the French version? Just a touch.
Yes, there was something confusing that I noticed. The French version, some folks chose to respond in French, however, answered in English. So sort of mixed them all up and came up with one set of data for both surveys.
So what happens, wait, just a minute. If you don't speak in the microphone, the people won't, so save it for the question period, but yes, that would be great.
So when we took all of those responses, these are the results that we got. The first question in the survey was, are you in favor of the town accepting the grant? And 57 respondents said they were in favor, and 43% said they were against the town accepting the grant. The next question, wrong button. There we go. The next question was, please share your thoughts, including any concerns, points to be mindful of, and positive aspects about the town accepting this funding. And we received all kinds of very interesting comments that I had a wonderful time reading. But then, it's 2026, so we stuffed them into an AI program. And it gave us an idea of the recurring themes. And I've put them up on the screen according to their weight. So many of the questions and comments, not questions, but mostly comments and thoughts and concerns were concerning access and control. And then we had a lot of comments on traffic and parking and overcrowding. And then came environmental protection, operating costs, loss of flexibility, and clarity gaps. I'll read to you a few of these comments just so you get an idea of what we were reading. So someone says, why exclude people from enjoying this beautiful natural setting? We should share this treasure with others. I thought that was beautiful. And then one says, concerns, overcrowding of Sandy Beach and protection of natural areas. So those were their major concerns. So another person wrote, un espace, comme une plage,
où les citoyens peuvent se rassembler, s'amuser et profiter de la nature, provoque seulement du positif, dans notre opinion. S'il y avait des points négatifs dans le futur, il s'agirait peut-être d'un manque d'entretien de la plage ou d'un surplus extérieur de touristes irrespectueux, dont ceux-ci sont très facilement gérés d'avance. Another one says, as I understand it with the grant, Hudson will have to allow others to use Sandy Beach. I feel this is fair as I use other communities, structures, parks, etc. I also believe that even without the grant, people from other communities are going to come despite any notices, rules to the contrary. We might as well take that grant. I do wonder about controlling the site and how that logistic is going to be handled, but I look forward to being able to walk in that area again. Another person says, I do not want Hudson to end up like Aucun Beach. Lineups and too many people, cars and school buses. Another one, I witnessed the chaos in town when everyone was allowed to come and use Sandy Beach. The lack of parking, litter, etc. I also noticed that most people brought their own picnics, went to the beach and left. I think the beach and the nature in this area would be better served by having fewer people there. Just for Hudson residents is my preference, thank you. And then one last one, très bonne initiative. Plus de touristes pour les commerces de la ville. On doit être confiant de notre administration qui gère notre ville. Okay, I admit I put that one in for me. This next slide, I really wanted to share with you because I feel that these two comments highlight the town's responsibilities so well, and even though they're very different. So I'll read them to you, another little bit long, but it's so worth it. One says, I strongly oppose accepting this grant. If the goal of purchasing the land is ecological protection, then access must be limited to the number of people that the land can manage. It is not a very large area, and it is ecologically sensitive, meaning that only a few people should be able to be there on a daily basis. Access should be strictly limited to protect the land. If we accept the grant and are obliged to allow everyone in the CMM equal access, we would have to greatly reduce access by Hudsonites if managed properly for ecological purposes. The other option is that the land is poorly managed. Everyone is allowed access in an unlimited way, ruining the ecology of the land and possibly extirpating sensitive species. Now, that's a big word to say that the species have vanished. The specific species doesn't live there anymore because it can't, because its habitat has been degraded. I'm also concerned about the cost, especially in terms of staff effort and time of managing the property, especially managing access. Would this be done with an entry gate? There are multiple ways in the property. Would we need multiple entry gates? Would it be done via parking access? So this person is very concerned. And then this comment, I think we should accept this money from the CMM. It is our money, and it is for exactly this purpose. Moreover, everyone has a right to access nature and the river. This includes everyone in Hudson as well as our neighbors in the regions around us. We do not live in a vacuum, and we all benefit from other natural areas around, such as Montrigaud. Limiting access to certain individuals would be unfair, undemocratic, and immoral. You can see that they're completely different ideas, but they illustrate the town's responsibility very well. On one hand, we are now stewards of this land and must find the best way to conserve it. On the other hand, the land is now public and is purchased by the people who have loved it for many years. And not to mention that the town's conservation plan, as well as its parks, green space master plan, both plans highlight the importance of access to nature to Hudson's residents. So our work is to find the best of both worlds, conservation and access. And that leads me very beautifully into the next slide, where our next steps are going to be to award a contract to produce the conservation plan. The deliverables of this plan will be firstly to produce a portrait of the site that will describe the natural areas, the existing infrastructure, and the threats to ecological integrity. They will hold and produce, I mean Naturation, they will hold and produce a report of the public consultation process, which will include a survey, public workshops, and private roundtables. So this process will start soon in the spring. A map of the sectors will also be produced to help us determine which areas should be conservation, protection, or recreation, or reserved for infrastructure and amenities. So we need a map to show us where these zones will be. They'll also produce management recommendations, including an action plan to track future expenses, bioindicators to help us monitor that ecological integrity, and best management practices as well. The cost of the mandate, that's important as well. It's $46,840, and the entire process will take 1 full year. It will begin at the end of February. And so the drafting, like I said, will take about a year. There will be a project committee created. And this committee will be made up of municipal employees and council members. It will be created to ensure that the project stays on course. If there are course corrections that need to happen, then the project committee will point those out. The project committee will meet quarterly, and I've just shown you the timeline here with Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So each of those quarters has a project committee meeting, and then in Q2, you see that the consultation process begins with a survey, thank you, and the workshops and the targeted roundtables with the stakeholders. A preliminary report will be tabled at the end of the year. The Environment Committee will have the opportunity here to make recommendations to Council regarding the preliminary plan, and then the final report will be tabled at the beginning of next year, at which time we will hold a public presentation to share with you the final plan. And now the moment we have all been waiting for, the reopening. It will take place this winter as soon as all the paperwork has been settled. We have to take care of some bylaws as well, modifications to allow access to the areas that were blocked off, and to allow parking on Beach Street. For this year, because we don't have a conservation plan yet, parking along the north side of Beach Street will be permitted. Parking at Jack Layton and the community center will require a vignette.
The same one we already have.
The same system we already have, absolutely. Where's my, I've lost my pointer.
Catching. It goes from one computer to the next.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like, oh, no.
You can do this.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
You can do this.
It just disappeared.
Use 2 fingers to scroll down.
All right. Okay. Where was I? We have requested that from the federal government a grant to hire a student to act as a conservation agent. This person will be responsible for sharing information with the visitors. It's not somebody that will give tickets, but just, trying to raise some awareness, count visitors and see how many people are in there, and if there are too many people, then raise a red flag, and then the town can intervene. There will be, this person will also be able to inspect les sentiers, the paths. Trails, thank you. And we will put up some appropriate signage as well to let people know what the opening hours are, what sensitive habitats are present, and to be careful not to go off the trails. And that swimming is not allowed. That's also going to be on a sign. And then any amenities that will be put up I think this summer will be minimal, but the conservation plan will help us decide what amenities we will see in the future. All right, and so now, in the next little while, you will see, you might have noticed already that some of the trees have been marked. We marked a few trees that were only on the side of the trails that could fall on the trails. We marked some trees for trimming as well. We won't be managing the forest there. It's an ecological conservation area, and it's just to keep the trails safe. So that's going to be happening in the next few weeks. And then the survey and workshop process of the consultation will begin in the spring. And there you have it.
So that is it for the part on the presentation. I hope that you learned some interesting material. Please come to the microphone if you have any questions. Ask us anything that you would like. As I mentioned, anything that I have in mind, I will certainly share with you. If there's anything more technical that Sophia can't answer to or Vanessa won't be able to answer to, then we'll just write them down and get back to you probably on Tuesday at the council meeting. So please come ahead.
I'm Vladimir Orlt, Quarry Point. First thing that I want to ask, will the referendum results influence your decision? To what extent?
The survey?
Yeah.
The survey? I think for us it was important to see. We wanted to gauge on terms of acceptability, and it's aligned with where we were already hoping to go. So in Council's position to date has been to stay with the subsidy, to continue to seek the subsidy. We just want to make sure there were no blind spots in what we were looking at, and wanted to make sure that we had the support of the community as well.
Okay, well, I think in terms of the ecology, it's fairly obvious that the more people you have, the harder it will be to maintain it as it is.
Absolutely.
As far as the growth side is concerned, I feel that the biggest influence will be the comment which you added earlier, which was basically economic interests. And I have a feeling that this is an influence which is in the background. It's not being openly stated, but it's there. And of course, the more you lean that way, the more you lean against environmental protection. So it's a classic trade-off, which is how it is over the whole planet, basically, right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's the money necessarily. It's really on thinking, do we want to be the town that basically keeps people away from something that has traditionally been shared with family, visitors, and such? Are we turned away when we go to another municipality from a certain place? And then looking at the logistics, the length of that site, how narrow it is, the multiple points of access. Do we want to be patrolling the periphery and how do you stop people from coming from the water's edge? So there's a lot in there. We'd rather spend our efforts and our time in actually understanding the ecology and managing the ecology. And if we have to shut down some sectors or the site because we want the ecology to have a better chance in periods of drought or other, then we will do so. But it shouldn't be because of what passport or what your living address.
Well, other municipalities have already made their choices whether they want to allow it basically or not. It's not like we have to follow everybody else. Okay, if you decide against it, which it's not likely, then you wouldn't have to have a plan at all, because over the past years and years, we've had people without any plan, and the place is still reasonably healthy, except you have lots of garbage, which will become worse, obviously, and if you have to create extra parking lots, I don't know, what's your plan for that?
Well, that will come through with the master plan, you know, that conservation management plan, but I don't foresee that we will be paving more or adding more mineral surfaces in order to accommodate more visitors. I think there's other ways of encouraging people to come into the core and to walk to the site. But if you don't mind, there's quite a line behind you and have other people ask them questions. But thank you very much for your input.
Reed Thompson, Upper Whitlock, and Councillor for District 4. Just a quick question about the CMM. If we were to accept the grant, would the CMM in any way advertise Sandy Beach as a destination for people to come to, or tell people, please come to Hudson, there's a free beach, anything like that?
So they, as part of the requirements, is that they've asked that they have the ability to promote the fact that they have this program for protecting natural areas. So they want to do at least one announcement that says the CMM has subsidized $2 million. They've done this for Notre-Dame-d'Île-Perrot, they've done this for the other areas, but their goal is not to bring more visitors to Sandy Beach and to be the promoter of tourism. That's not what they're there for. They're there to say, look at the CMM, we support environmental conservation. Here is another project that we've done, and that is it. If you remember when they were here in August, they said, we absolutely recognize that you have a small site and the last thing you want to do, but know that if you wanted to accept the $2 million and close it entirely to human presence, you could. Right? So it's an announcement to demonstrate that they are supporters of conservation of environment. It is not an announcement to draw people to a site.
Yuri Rodrigue, Rue Maple.
Bonjour, Yuri.
Bonsoir. From the respondents on the survey, was it also sourced how many of them are actual Hudson residents, and if they are from which other municipalities?
You were asked in the survey to say whether you were a Hudson resident, and if you did not, this survey shut down. So it was only for Hudson residents.
Okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Jason Duane, Upper McNaughton. I see that Council have presented to us the capital financing model, and $2 million of it is in question here now, but I have not seen any numbers associated with operating a public access spot and the operational cost of doing that. Will the Council present to the public an estimate or an operational cost for access control, maintenance, cleaning, and also have they considered liabilities of inviting a much wider space of people to our town in what is a recreation area?
So part of Nature Action Québec's mandate is that plan with the maps and the report and their recommendations and integrating all of the residents' input, essentially. But it comes with an estimate. It comes with an estimate on what, if there were additional amenities, let's say, for example, toilets or benches or whatever it is, walking paths, footbridges, that would be part of an estimate that they will be submitting in time for next budget, so 2027, so that the town has something concrete with which to put forward to council as we're deciding on the next year's budget. But also it'll help us assess on how far do we want to go, or how limited do we want to make it. At this point, the operations for 2026 will be similar to the operations that it had been before it was closed. You heard from Sophia that there is a request for a summer student to essentially provide greater sensitivity and information to people who are already using the site, sensitizing them to the environmental values that are there, but also keeping an eye on the actual use, what is working, what is not working. So the cost should be similar from, for this year from years past. There will be a better distribution of our blue collars in terms of the frequency on how they come, because we have a new collective agreement where we're able to split some of the work shifts over the weekend, which was something that was harder to do with the previous collective agreement. So that will not be incurring additional costs. It'll be the same cost. So what you're looking at is future investments, if there were to be some, and of course, what would be the repercussions in terms of management if we chose to go that way. There was a second part to your question, and I'm trying to remember.
Well, but benches and toilets and stuff are capital items. It's cost of policing.
Management.
And what about liabilities? If there
The
is a health
liability,
incident
that was
or
the
an
one that I was
interaction
missing.
with an animal or watercraft,
So we
a sign alone saying no bathing.
So I will answer your question.
does
We
not-
already have public parks. We are already insured for our public parks. But of course, if there is something that is out of the ordinary, that will pop, and we will have that assessed as well.
So will the town people have access to the additional operating costs incurred by opening it to the wider region?
We will
Yes
make
or
sure
no?
that that is clear, so that we are all making clear decisions and you have that material.
The answer is yes. Before we accept this money, is it yes or is it no?
It'll be after we accept this money.
So afterwards, we'll learn the cost of accepting the money.
The money does not generate more
It's
amenities.
the traffic and the people.
I do not see one as being equal to the other. Again, if we choose to control the volume of people, we'll just have to control whether you're from Hudson or anywhere else. We'll be controlling it based on the quality of the environment and not necessarily on who is there.
It's okay.
Hi, I'm Martin Smith on Main Road. One comment and then a question as well. Comment, I'm glad to see that things are looking at it from an environmental aspect first. As such, when you have something saying no swimming, it's kind of contraindicated with a place called Sandy Beach. And we might want to think about renaming it for the purpose of making it more of a conservation as opposed to a recreation type of advertising, if you will. My question then was, you were showing that the first part of the plan from the environmental assessment is to map out Sandy Beach area and what's different fauna and flora, whatever. Hasn't that already been done? Because you already came up and understood what the different creatures, et cetera, at risk were. So isn't that part already complete?
You're right. It's been done for the lots that we purchased. And so now they will give us a broader picture of the entire area using that information, using those studies that already exist.
Okay, so it should be reasonably straightforward then.
Yes.
And at a more granular level, right? Less high up and up to date.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? Yes, please come ahead.
Hi, Carol Ann Mills, Hemlock. I guess the only comment that I'd like to make is I'm a little bit worried about the timeline. I think it really concerns me that you're looking at an entire year before things actually get established. I would have liked to have, obviously there's only so much you can do prior to having an actual purchase agreement signed in front of you. But to think an entire year before we have new bylaws in place, before we have a security company that's actually working the site versus just a couple of students who are helping out. Sanitation was obviously a big issue. You address that with the new collective agreement and more weekend work. If it didn't fall under the purview while we didn't own it, perhaps it would have been interesting to bring in a contract to an outside company to manage the sanitation on the site. That's all, really, just to say I'm concerned about an entire year. I'm concerned about yet another workshop, more surveys. I think at this point we kind of trust you to say between you and Nature Action and all the others, we know what we want to do with the site. I don't know about asking the population to come forward yet one more time to decide, on perhaps the minutiae of what we want the site to be. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's still a lot of people who want to have more finite input to provide on the site, the management of the site, the different partners that we mentioned, the stakeholders that we mentioned. But with regards to patrolling, I mean, obviously we do have a contract with a community patrol, and they will be patrolling Sandy Beach. They will be patrolling the parking areas, so that will be happening this year. It will not be a full year before that happens. And the same with everything else. The bylaws, we've already started updating the bylaws to return the parking permissions. And so I believe these will be active within a month. I've sort of lost track of them, but I think it's within a month soon. So a lot of that is happening nonetheless. It's really, there's always, in these contracts, in the planning contracts, there's always that first stage of inventory, making sure that you have all of the material, all the latest information. We know that we have new flood maps that are coming out soon, so that will be a new layer that gets added into the map. And then to really understand where the different species, where the risks and where the highest impact or the highest sensitivities are. And asking ourselves, we're used to where the paths are, but is it necessarily the best place for those paths to be? And should there be an area that is completely locked off or not? And I think it gives us that year as well to get a better feel for, should there be an area that is dedicated to play or an area that is dedicated to learning and so on, which might give a better rotation and a better chance to some of the more fragile. So I think the year is a good thing. Gives Sophia some breathing room as well. We've pretty much loaded her table. She's got a lot on her plate. And if we see that the consultations are generating less interest, I mean, 560 responses to the survey is pretty extraordinary. As Sophia was sharing with me, she went to the MRC this week, and I'll let her complete that thought. But it's interesting to see how participatory Hudson is at all levels.
Yeah, it's really impressive. The MRC had a survey come out on the climate plan that they're working on for the region. You may have seen it. Almost 600 people responded to the MRC.
At the regional level.
At the regional level, and 100 of those were from Hudson. Yeah. So,
and they're completely blown away. They're not used to seeing that level of participation. Yeah. And it's always also informed and intelligent participation. So it makes a real difference for us, and we want to honor that. So that is certainly a request that Council continues to make at each step of the way, which is we want you to consult and find all of the ways of consulting the community. We have a lot of very intelligent, very learned people, and we would like them to be able to provide their input at all levels. So again, if we find it's getting to be too much, trust us. I think Sophia and the consultants will be quite happy to just plow forward with as little interruptions as possible. Please come to the mic.
Good evening. Thank you for holding this session. I think Hudson's a very involved place and does appreciate this type of transparency. and I think you will have a good feedback in the year to come. I don't think you'll be done in a year. I think this is going to be a learning process. There's going to be many things that will impact changes in the next year and going forward. So I am very worried about the possible constraints of accepting this grant from the CMM. We all wish Sandy Beach was kind of the way it was many years ago, mostly residents, few people coming from outside, but the genie is out of the bottle. We can't go back. But I think each Hudsonite is a great stakeholder. Each one individually is investing $1,500 to the purchase of this beach versus 46 cents per CMM resident. I think our needs should be the priority. I don't expect this beach to be closed, but if things need to be managed, access has to be restricted, I'm not sure it's fair that it is equal across the board. Forget about just the cost of purchasing the beach. We will solely be responsible for its maintenance going forward. That's not equalized across the CMM, that's ours alone. So I'm not personally on board with accepting the grant. I'd rather dish out the extra $37. I don't see it being easy to change our mind once this is in action. I know it's a possibility, but I just don't care for that restriction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eva. Please come to the mic.
I'm Lori Rubin. I live on Brisbane. I have two quick questions or comments, and then my husband, who cannot be here tonight because he's teaching a class, he asked me if I am able to read a comment from him.
Sure.
Which is opposite to my own comments.
Which one do I want to hear first?
So it puts me in a very weird position, but I said I would ask.
Please go ahead.
So for my two quick questions, you mentioned that there's no swimming. So does that mean there will obviously be no lifeguards, and like before, we could just swim at our own risk? Because if it is a rule which is punishable, possibly, why would anybody come here from far away, Montreal or the regions, if they can't go into the water? So that's, if you could just explain.
Why would they come to
Sandy Beach if they can't
if
go
it
in the
wasn't
water?
to swim? I think a lot of people come just to get away from the city. Not everybody knows about the beach, and it's not our plan necessarily to promote this as a beach destination. I think Martin Smith had a good point earlier in the renaming, the branding, and that it should be more of an environment or conservation name. I mean, amongst us, we'll probably always call it Sandy Beach. If we use Sandy Beach tonight, it's just so that you know we're talking about that place. In terms of swimming or no swimming, if we were to promote it as a public swimming destination, then we would have to put lifeguards there and look after it. We have done some due diligence and asked on what our responsibilities. Would we have to actively patrol that specifically and fine for that? So what we've learned is that as long as the signage is clear, as long as our bylaws are clear, that is adequate demonstration of having taken our responsibilities. The communication aspect that is important, so you will hear us speak of it. Is that the priority of someone patrolling the beach? No. The priority is still the environment. That is what we're looking for. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Also, I'm part of the Sandy Beach Conservancy Group, and this question is something that we've toyed around with at all of our meetings. Is there any indication that number 2 Royal View will be explored, accessing that in the near future?
In terms of purchase?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 Royal View did come to the Town Planning Advisory Committee for review again, so the owners are still maintaining, looking to have their right to build. There will be a resolution to this effect, as we do every month with the files that are reviewed by the Town Planning Advisory Committee, so that will be Tuesday. We do know that the maps are being revised and will be in place. I heard today through the CMM that in our area, the maps will be sensibly similar to what we know from the ZIS, so la zone d'intervention spéciale. And so there shouldn't be any drastic surprises there, but I will make sure that we look through those. And then around the council table, you know, we have discussed it. I think that we would need to do some more research in terms of the value. Is the value the same today that it was several years ago? Will it be the same in a few years after the flood maps? We don't really know at this point. But we feel that already the purchase of what we've managed to purchase is a big number. It's a big number to carry for 40 years. To continually add to that number is starting to push the limit, the envelope. I haven't felt a wave, you know, of support or demand from the community that we also purchase that, but I agree with you that that will certainly put a different feel to that entire section of the beach, absolutely. So it's a heavy heart, but we have to, at some point, I think, make choices and be pleased with what we already have.
Okay. So now can I read his comments?
Yes, absolutely.
Remember, these are his comments. Okay.
Can't wait.
His name is Martin Wise, lives on Brisbane.
You could have someone else read it if you'd rather, so that it doesn't get confused.
No, because I have to fix his mistakes.
Oh.
Firstly, I want to qualify that my opinion may differ from the members of the Sandy Beach Conservancy, of which I am an active member, and does not necessarily reflect the feelings of that organization or of my wife, who is reading this for me. I added that part. Many years ago, and also some of the information that he wrote here may not even be correct, but again,
That's all right.
Many years ago, the town of Hudson sold the area that we refer to as Sandy Beach to an individual who subsequently resold it, and the history of how many times it has changed hands to me is so blurred that I was never able to put together how we ended up losing ownership of this gem of an area. The fact is, the original sale of Sandy Beach was a huge blunder because someone or some group didn't have enough foresight to realize what a mistake it was. I worked with the Sandy Beach Conservancy selling T-shirts, garage sales, canvassing in the scorching sun, even walked in the St. Patrick's Day parade, and doing all sorts of grunt work to do my small part in regaining the ownership of Sandy Beach. And now, with the same lack of foresight after regaining ownership, we are willing to give up our total control of what we have fought so hard to get. At one time, the city of Dollard-des-Ormeaux, where I used to live, accepted a similar grant, and their beautiful Centennial Park was open to the general public. People came from outlying areas to use the park, and it soon became an untenable situation where the picnic tables and barbecues became monopolized for entire days, with large family gatherings and parties, leaving messes of garbage and litter, and the parking overflow with no space available to the residents. They realized their mistake, and the city, in order to mitigate this, removed the barbecues and assigned the picnic tables each a time limit. They rue the day that they accepted the grant. Do not misunderstand me. I am okay with allowing outsiders who do not live in Hudson to access Sandy Beach, but accepting the grant from the CMM, we give concessions to them as well as our right to certain privileges forever, that we may eventually regret. It is very altruistic to open up Sandy Beach to whoever may want to visit, but we now have the choice of maintaining total control of what is ours, or for the sake of $2 million, lose it forever. This was calculated as $37 per household per year, which is less than a meal for 3 people at Sauvé's. Please do not repeat the same mistake again. Thank you.
Thank you. The town never owned Sandy Beach. But that's okay. It was the Blankenship
know, that's why I
family.
prefaced
No, but you might want to let them know. And with regards to losing control, it is ours to have. It's not, the CMM's not interested. Again, when I was speaking to someone at the CMM, Nicolas Milot, this morning while I was there, I mentioned that this evening we were having this presentation. And he said, and how's the survey? So I gave him the results, and he said, oh, that's very positive. And I said, but there's still a genuine fear that we would be losing control by accepting. And he said, please let them know that I have many better things to do with my time than to come and control. And he said, we wouldn't want to do that anyway, and it's not at all included in that agreement. We do not have the right to come and control. The only condition, as we keep mentioning, is if we were to set any control on entrance, access, or anything, it has to be the same control for everyone. So again, when I ask myself, what type of control or how would we control something and determine what we do for a local resident versus someone who doesn't live here, do we have to carry an identification card? Like, how would this even begin to work? I just don't see that happening. So I'm trying to be as blunt and as transparent as possible so that if someone really wants to prove me wrong, please do. But I have spoken about this and shared my points of views and discussed it with council and with staff as well. I really believe that this is the right way to go. And it's interesting when you were bringing up to rural view, I'm thinking, well, in a way, there's somewhere there where maybe we have a little bit more room if we think of it in this term. But again, let's give ourselves all the chances. And I really believe that with this conservation management plan that we will have the answer on how to keep this place precious, not overloaded, well-maintained, while it is thriving and continuing to flourish environmentally. More so than now, there are some invasive species that are taking over in certain areas, and those are all areas where I think together we can learn from and learn to manage and start to gain back some control over those invasive species.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, June.
Hi, June Penny. First of all, congratulations on this great acquisition. I'm very thrilled with the news, and I'm hoping that...
February 26th.
Well, I know it's not there. I was counting on February 11th.
Me too.
A few days late. But anyway, as you know, I've lived here for 47 years or so, and first of all, Sandy Beach, in my opinion, should remain Sandy Beach.
No change of name.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because my boys grew up here, they know it as Sandy Beach. I have grandchildren now. You know, I would like them to know it as Sandy Beach, which brings me to the subject of the no swimming. I would like to know the rationality behind that, because with young children, how are you going to keep them out of the water, right? And you don't go to Aucun Beach with thinking that you're not going to go in the water. And Thompson Park, are there any restrictions there about swimming? So why would we put restrictions on Sandy Beach?
So in theory, there are restrictions everywhere where there are no lifeguards and that belongs to the town.
Yeah, but it's swim at own risk. That's what you see in the Eastern Townships.
That's what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Is that's what we have to do, is to make sure that it is clear in our bylaws, it is clear in all of our policies online, and that there is signage. So the same will be for Thompson Park. And otherwise, I mean, if you choose to break the rules, you choose to break the rules.
But can we not have the rule?
No, we need the rules, because if we don't have the rules, then it is a public swimming place and it needs to be supervised in case of someone having difficulty in drowning.
Then how do the lakes in the Eastern Townships get away with swim at your own risk? How is that allowed?
It's the signage. It's the signage.
Yeah, but can't we put those signs?
It comes to the same, June. That's what I'm saying.
I don't understand.
A sign is a sign is a sign that says, If you're swimming, you're not supposed to be swimming, but it belongs to you to swim or not swim. We are not responsible for your
That's right.
swimming. But how that will be worded may be slightly differently than what you're expected, but it will be
But
assigned.
do you have the concept, though, that there will be no access allowed to the water at Sandy
No, it's a
Beach?
beach. It is what it is. We're not
Okay.
changing any of that. We're not going to fence that off.
All
or
right.
do
Well, that's what I was
No,
worried
no,
about, that no one would be allowed to go
Au
in the
naturel,
water.
the most, as simple and as plain as possible.
All right. So, thank
Yeah.
you. And
You're
once
welcome.
again, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Marcus Owen, Birch Hill.
You can raise that, Marcus. That was for Carol Ann, I think.
Marcus Owen, Birch Hill. Thanks for clarifying the swimming issue. That's a good way to handle it. If you
Well, we
swim,
had
you
to
do
check,
it
right.
at your own risk. That's fine. It's
But we had to make
clarified-
sure that that was adequate, right? That we were not stopping too short from our actual responsibility. But it has been confirmed. That is an acceptable approach.
That's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Two questions are really both related to financing or money. I'm curious, was there an indication in the comments, basically as a line item, that people were concerned about the difference between, well, the $37 a year? Was an indication that a percentage or anybody who answered the questionnaire were concerned about that?
I didn't get that feel, Sophia.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So the question could have been on the questionnaire, to be more explicit. Are you concerned about the additional
Oh, the
cost
extra.
to your taxes for this loan?
Well, some people outright said that the $37 was not a reason, it wasn't enough money. And others said that we should try and save as much money as we can.
Okay.
So it was kind of split.
But, okay.
I don't have any percentages.
No, I understand that because you didn't ask a specific question
No, yeah.
in that area. I was just curious because I had some ideas if that was a concern of people. The other money issue is, I think at the beginning, Sophia, you mentioned in your presentation, you'd went to 5 different organizations, Conservation Canada.
Yes.
Did you have any success in gaining any funds?
Not necessarily for the purchase, but some for projects. So if we, out of the conservation plan, they recommend certain projects for rehabilitation, for example, or control of invasives, then we can go and get some additional funds or some funding to help those projects.
So they weren't offering money, we can go and get it for specific phases of the project
Yeah,
at the appropriate time?
yes.
So you can't put a dollar on it at this point?
No, not at this point.
No, okay. My last is I just firmly believe, and maybe I'm being very cynical in the world we live in now, nothing is forever. I think about the agricultural reserve and getting agricultural land changed from being agricultural and being developed. It happens when there is a pressure to do it. If there's a piece of agricultural land anywhere, if the population or the demand on land is such, then the government will shift policy and allow development to go ahead on agricultural land. And the analogy I just want to bring is, with taking this loan from the CMM, we are not guaranteeing preservation in perpetuity, because at some point in the future, it could change. And by keeping it under the control of Hudson, and yes, we don't get the $2 million, but boy, we do keep control of our destiny as it relates to the use of that piece of property.
I feel that it's the reverse, because here it's not just the zoning at the local level, but there's the requirement to have it registered at the metropolitan level. And they want that number to continue to increase. They're looking for 17 and even 30% protection. So they're not going to want necessarily to facilitate municipalities from dropping out of that registry, if you follow me. They want to keep adding to that registry. So by us being obliged to sign into that registry in order to obtain the $2 million is actually an added protection. It's a lot harder for a subsequent council to come on board and to say, well, we've changed our mind, we'd like to develop it, we're going to rezone it. They'd actually have to go to the CMM and say, here's your $2 million, because now we want to take it out of that registry because we want to develop it.
I hear your point, I understand your point, but actually I was coming from the standpoint of the CMM being a government entity changing the rules.
So it's a convention, it's an agreement, it's like any contract. A contract cannot be changed unilaterally. If they were to propose any amendments, we'd have to agree to them, but they can't on their own side. It's like any other contract. That has been confirmed.
But still to the point, if we have a control of it ourselves and we don't give it to the CM, anything to the CMM.
They have no control. It's just we have prerequisites to fill in order to obtain the money. They have zero control.
We may agree to disagree.
That's all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Julie Boudreau on Quarry Point. I would never dream of saying nobody but Hudsonites can come and use the beach. What I'm concerned about is the scale of 85 municipalities with 4.5 million people, that is half the population of Quebec, being granted equal access rights. Now, you're telling us that we could back away. Kind of hard to imagine a scenario where we would borrow again to pay them back, but I just feel like this is so lopsided, and that, you know, this is Goliath and we're the little Davids who want to make sure, yes, we will run the show ourselves, but the thought of even a little smidgen of people, I share Councillor Thompson's concerns about the way the message gets out, and all of a sudden Sandy Beach becomes a destination. Let's go, let's pack up the picnics, and we're finding ourselves with a beach that is swarmed and that is being ruined. And that's a big concern for me. Half the province of Quebec, that's a lot of people for a little town like ours. Thank you.
You're welcome. They already have access, right? And they don't come here. But I think that's the difference, is we have to continue to promote it as an area of conservation. It's not an area of recreation, right? And la trame verte et bleue is conservation. It is not like, come to the festivals in Montreal. Do you know, it's a different, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Liz Morgan, Hillcrest.
And you were saying off microphone, it was the reason the surveys in French were answered in English.
Oh, because I have an instant translation. And so I ended up by going into what was English, but it actually was French.
Of course.
So when I kept pushing the button to get the English, I never got it.
Of course.
Well, your comments were taken into account anyway.
Yes. Yeah. But I found, actually, there was one thing that was a bit confusing, because I am a complete Sandy Beach Conservancy supporter. However, I am differing, I have a different opinion about receiving the grant, and that is that I don't agree with it. I'm a bit of a mouse, and looking at an elephant, and I'm a little bit worried about what's in, you know, the Trojan horse that might be there.
I'm fascinated by this, and I hear it. It's existing, but I really do not have that fear, and I don't think that I'm a dumb person necessarily. Maybe because I've listened to them and worked with them for several years now, and I know exactly where they're coming from. But also, we sign conventions with different entities, not just with the CMM on a regular basis. But more, I'm trying to figure out how to turn people's minds towards the positive that is in this relationship, because that's what it is. It's using their leverage in order to get what we want, and to continually, there's a lot more happening in that program. There will be a volet 3 that we probably will want to apply to for the implementation phase in order to keep costs down.
I can understand.
Every time we mention the word CMM, it brings out,
Well, bad feelings,
Yes.
wonder why. No, I've had bad experiences with them. I have landed
bit on the density
in
development
green
side of it,
and,
no?
all this sort of thing, and then all of a sudden land restrictions and selling the land, had to have right of first refusal on agricultural land that they decided that in their wisdom that all of a sudden belonged to everybody, and without consulting the landowners. I mean, I've had my problems. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just I'm just wary about it. Part of it is the Sandy Beach misnomer, which is whoever brought that up. It shouldn't be called Sandy Beach anything. It should be called a natural reserve with restricted access instead of a beach.
See, I
So,
feel we're going to
you
have
know-
that debate all year long, and I'm looking forward to it because the name keeps coming
The name is wrong.
Yeah.
It means it is right. It is Sandy Beach, but it's going to attract too many people. And, if the CMM isn't coming with more than $2 million and sort of saying we'll give you $500,000 a year in order to restrict access or to have parking, permits or whatever. I can't imagine. I'm very much on board with what Julie Boudreau has said about having having Sandy Beach all of a sudden being a destination for all these people that are going to be craving to get to someplace with natural access and to a beach. I mean, my God, it's too good to believe.
So I think it's very important that the communications be crafted in a way that represents exactly what we want that site to be, which is conservation and nature reserve rather than recreation. We have other areas that are recreation. And again, this is not a site for recreation in the CMM. It is really a site for conservation.
I also think there's a way of having it in perpetuity that the CMM is sort of saying, and everybody's sort of glomming on all of, if they're going to do that, it's a good thing to get the money because they're going to be the ones to do it. I think that we can create a way of having it done in perpetuity with another organization or in another way.
You are
or
right.
on our own.
No, and we should do that anyway.
It's not.
But we should
because
do
of
that anyway. We should try
But it's
and
not
reach.
because of the CMM and the grant. is
You
what
are
I'm saying.
correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Chloe. Hi, Sophia. Kevin Slayer, Quarry Point. I also sit on the Environment Committee for the town. Just going to start with saying hats off to the council for pulling the trigger on the purchase. The cost and the need will only increase in the future. I do really like what I hear, despite what some folks have said in the room today. I am supportive of the $2 million only because, as it was outlined, the obligations are even for everybody, and I think having the control to do that makes sense, especially if the intent is to formalize the area as a conservation area through formal protection conservation, either it being an IUCN designation or an OECM, other effective area-based conservation measure. That also contributes, maybe for folks in the room, Canada's commitment to the 30 by 30, 30% of Canada's area to be protected or conserved. So I think that would help put Hudson back on the map for their environmental light. So hats off for that. I should have spoke earlier because I completely agree that changing the name, maybe keeping Sandy Beach in the name, but adding conservation area, particularly if it is going to be formally designated. It's good to hear that that you also clarified that the third component is CMM. Being registered as a conservation area likely opens it up to a tier 3. Maybe there's funding through that. I do believe that there is also possibility of funding if it is actually formally designated as a protected area or a conserved area that other.
There are more channels for funding, for sure.
Cost associated with policing the area if we do not accept the funds. I believe that they're likely, you mentioned it a little bit already in terms of what are you going to start carding people who are there? I think that's nonsense, and if people are going to come, they're going to come anyways. So why add the cost? And then finally, it's just a long ramble, but ultimately, despite some earlier comments about the delay of the publication of the management plan, I think I'm actually happy to hear that it's going to take some time to develop, because we want to make sure that we have the proper input, proper folks engaged to make sure that the management plan and what's pitched is consultation with that. And
I had hoped it would happen like that. I tried, and Sophia said no. So
good job, Sophia.
I do listen.
Yeah. So yeah, no real question, but hats off, and I agree with most of what's been said tonight. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. And thank you for all your work on the Environment Committee and everyone else who is on that committee.
I feel so happy. It takes a lot to make Kevin happy.
That's great.
I feel proud.
Bonsoir, Luc. Si vous voulez parler en français, on peut
Oui,
parler.
Luc Dionne, Birchill. Quelques questions faciles. Si je comprends bien, le parc va être ouvert à partir du printemps.
Le parc est déjà ouvert, mais officiellement, on va faire un lancement, on va faire un événement d'ouverture cet hiver, un peu pour mousser l'atmosphère aussi dans les rues, pour aider les commerçants, mais aussi parce que ça ne nous tente pas trop d'attendre jusqu'au printemps.
OK. Je pense que j'aimerais juste réitérer ce qui vient d'être dit, puis que vous avez déjà mentionné, c'est que si on n'accepte pas la subvention de la CMM, comment on va être capable, sauf de mettre une clôture qui fait le tour puis d'avoir des agents de sécurité?
Ça revient au même. À mon avis, ça va revenir au même.
Je suis d'accord, je vous appuie sur ça. Question technique ici. Est-ce qu'on a un citoyen de Hudson qui a déjà eu une contravention pour ne pas avoir eu son chien en laisse? OK?
Sophia?
Oui, je vais revenir à ma diapositive où j'ai eu de la misère avec ma petite souris. Là, je l'ai retrouvée, ma souris. Oui, en effet, maintenant, le terrain va devenir tout au complet public. La loi du Québec est assez claire là-dessus. Il faut que le chien reste en laisse.
Parce que moi, je reste près du nichoir, puis il y a Parkinson Trail.
Croc-Sydenham.
On va marcher là, souvent. Il y a des chiens. Il y a même des chiens qui sont en laisse, mais pas de maître qui se tient la laisse. Donc, il me semble que si on est sérieux, on a un règlement qui dit qu'il faut avoir des laisses, il faut que le maître tienne la laisse, il faudrait faire un effort. Puis en particulier à Sandy Beach, c'est bien plaisant d'avoir les pieds dans le sable, mais il ne faut pas qu'il y ait de restant souvenir du chien. OK? Et moi, je suis allé quelques fois à Sandy Beach avant que ça soit fermé, et c'était fréquent. OK? Donc, si on a le plus beau joyau de la place, il faudrait que ça soit clair. S'il faut mettre 10 pancartes, mettons 10 pancartes. S'il faut avoir
Mais c'est plus que juste les pancartes dans le cas des chiens. Donc oui, ça va prendre...
Personnellement, quand je vais dans le nichoir, puis j'interpelle quelqu'un qui promène son chien sans laisse, je me fais presque agresser. OK? Les gens ont l'impression que c'est un droit acquis. Et je pense qu'à Sandy Beach, au moins, il faut essayer de faire une différence.
Ça va faire partie des campagnes d'éducation, de rééducation et de communication.
Ça, il faut éduquer
les
gens. Puis Clark-Sydenham va devenir public aussi.
Exactement.
Oui.
Merci.
Merci, Luc.
Helen Kurganski, Corey Point. First of all, thank you for the council and all the...
They're in the back corner so that you can turn and away.
Thank you to the council and to everybody who worked for the town to help bring us to this moment that is coming up.
And thank you, Helen, for all of your acharnement and your energy towards this as well.
Yeah, so I'm grateful, and personally, I am not concerned at all about accepting the money from the CMM. If I look at the obligations that are attached to taking this money, they're obligations of what we've all who have been trying to save Sandy Beach stand for. The obligation of conservation, to make certain that it's conserved for perpetuity. That would be our goal and what we hope going forward the future, so we can pass it on generation to generation. I think that's an obligation that if we're going to have that support, the town will keep control on the management and everything that we decide to do. There are hundreds, how many? It was 188 municipalities who have received the grants from the CMM. Projects that have received part of this conservation grant. I haven't heard of any municipality that was really sorry they took the money for being able to save the projects that they have. You given a number, I'm sorry, I didn't mark it down.
188 projects.
188, that's what I remember.
Municipalities.
So I mean, it would be interesting to meet with some of them and see how they keep the control on things. But anyway, it's very, very clearly stipulated. And the other stipulation that the CMM asks for is that we give access to all the municipalities that are part of the CMM. And I don't know if people remember, Sandy Beach has always given access to all those municipalities. Sandy Beach used to have a train station at the entryway to that beach. When we were doing for the Safe Sandy Beach group, meeting people, there was a lady who remembered coming here as a little girl when in 1940, and the train would come and the people would come and people would have picnic baskets and families. It was never an issue. It was great for the town and people have beautiful memories of it. I take care of a medical center where I have people in their 80s and 90s, and when I say I live in Hudson, they say, oh, I remember when I was a little girl, I would go, or I was a man, we would go there. The ex-mayor of Rigaud used to love taking his canoe and coming to Sandy Beach to see the beautiful girls from Pancourt, wherever he was living. It is always had access and open to everybody, and it didn't create problems. On the contrary, it's part of our heritage, our history, and there are other municipalities. The other thing I wanted to say in our management plan as we're going to be going forward, there are other municipalities, there are other organizations that have found ways to manage, to keep conservation and at the same time give access, and we can learn from them and be open. And I think it's very positive that we do accept it. And if we don't, I mean, how are we going to say where are you from? Show us your, you can't start controlling that. It's been part of the heritage that we've always had to be open, and then we just have to find a way to ensure that there's going to be respect and control. Anyway, that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much, Helen. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Amanda Alfonso from Côte St. Charles, District 4. And thanks, Helen. It's hard to follow that. I'm not that passionate, but I wanted to comment on a few things she mentioned, that the CMM Tram Vert et Bleu has already funded 188 projects, and I don't think anyone in this room can name one. Like, the CMM doesn't have Instagram followers, but like, that are going to come in droves if they announce this. What will, a viral TikToker will make a post about a beach and will bring people in whether or not we take that $2 million. And that's still a possibility whether we take the money or not. And which, from what I understand, it was a viral posting that brought like the dog event during the pandemic that caused a problem, like an incident at the time. I also want to continue on Helen's point about how it has always been open to access for everybody, and that's kind of why people are drawn here. It feels really strange to say that only Hudsonites should have access or guaranteed access when we have people from St. Lazare who are staff employees who should enjoy Sandy Beach. We have people who live in St. Lazare who've worked for 20 plus years at the Nichoir. We have people in Rigaud who volunteer in our organizations, Hudson Historical Society, and all these wonderful volunteer organizations that we have that come from outside to make and benefit and give back to Hudson. And suddenly it's like close the door. That doesn't. I hope people reflect on that, and it's not.
That's a really good point, actually. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no further questions, I will thank you very much for your active participation, for being here again, and know that there will be many more opportunities for you to provide feedback moving forward with at Sandy Beach, whatever the name that we end up with. I thank Vanessa for being by our side. Thank you, Sophia Fuga, for all of your hard work, and thank you to all of you. And please reach out to your counselors as you need if you have any further comments or suggestions to make. So good evening. Thank you.